Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Work-Life Harmony. I have a fantastic guest here today, and I will have her introduce herself in a minute. Michelle Cederberg is the author of the book, The Success Energy Equation. And we had our initial chat before I had dove in and really read the book. Then I read the book. I'm like, okay, we're going to need to schedule like 15 sessions, I think, to talk through everything that I want to. But Michelle, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll kind of talk about the topic that we're going to zero in on today that I think is going to be great timing here at the start of the year.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, Michelle Cederberg, and I am from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, in the Rocky Mountains, and I am a speaker coach and consultant. So I typically speak to my audiences about life balance and resilience and health and finding what I call success energy. So I released the book in October of 2020, and I'm excited to chat with you about it.
Me too, and I can't wait to get it in the hands of so many people. And one of the things that you and I had talked about, which is I think chapter was 7, I think, in the book, was around instilling the
belief in yourself. Yeah.
And your goals.
Yeah.
And this is something that I get really fired up about this time of year. We're recording this here at the end of December, but you guys will be listening to this in January at the start of the new year. And I think people get really fired up about goal setting, and they think about all the things that I want to accomplish and everything. And where my zone of genius is saying, okay, first let's clear up the mess on your calendar so that you can have the time to do it. But then there's this whole other part, which is not my zone of genius, which is really helping people get that belief system in. Because it's one thing to say, that sounds great, but then all that self-doubt starts coming in. I'm like, oh, but can I really? And so that's where I would love for you to dive in and just share some tips and thoughts around that as women that are listening are starting to think about their year and what they want to see out of it over the next 12 months.
Yeah, see, goals are those funny things that people either really embrace or they think, ugh, goals. And we don't want to write them down, and we don't want to show anybody, and all of that kind of stuff. What I believe about our goals, I think they're very, very important, but the challenge is, it doesn't matter how big the goal is if we don't believe in our ability to accomplish it, to crush it. And so we do need to, yes, set the goal, but then we also need to get right with ourselves and our head and our hearts and give ourselves permission to go as big as we need to crush that goal.
How do we, because I know some of the things I struggle with is I'm a go big or go home kind of person. I think most people know that when I think about goals. And a lot of times I'll step into one knowing it's a big stretch so that I don't set myself up to feel like a failure when, hey, I got 98 right. Let's not zero in on the 2 that got wrong. But where is that fine line of saying, okay, this is a little unreasonable? Like if I were to say, hey, I'm going to go run a 200-mile race, that's just ridiculous. And I need to let that go. Not that that has ever been a dream of mine, versus, hey, do I need to have a sit down with myself because this is a belief system problem, not this is just completely unrealistic.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I mean, all of us have those goals that just won't go away. The ones that just nag at us and say, why aren't you spending time on me? I had a goal of running a marathon. I had a goal of writing a book. And until I'd done both of those things, the goal just kept popping up saying, why aren't you spending time on me? If the goal comes up and it feels big and scary, but it keeps coming up, it's something that we need to pay attention to, because there's something in it that's kind of settled in your heart, if you will. If it feels big and scary, that's okay. I say it's okay to set big goals, but it's also okay to start small.
So if you have one of those big ones, and my audience is probably, I use the marathon example a lot because I went through that such a long time ago, but let's say it was a goal of writing a book that seemed very scary, but had been in your head for a while. What are some tips you can give on how to even break that down, particularly for someone who maybe isn't a natural writer? They're like, well, I don't even know where to start. Or, there's the obvious, you hear people say, oh, just write for an hour a day, but that might seem hard to even get to that point. What are some strategies that people can use with those things that are in their heart that keeps coming up, but they just don't know how to get going on it?
the book I wrote before the Success Energy Equation was called Energy Now, Small Steps to an Energetic Life. And as much as I am like you, I'm kind of a big thinker, a big dreamer. I do believe that small steps are the key to giving us that momentum to get us moving in the direction of our dreams. And so if it's writing, then it is, I don't want to say write an hour a day, but practice writing in whatever way that shows up for you, whether it's journaling every morning, doing your morning papers, or writing a blog, and just getting better at that craft. The same thing with running. I mean, when we're running a marathon, we don't start with 26.2 miles, right? We start with maybe a mile and it doesn't feel very good. And we think, how the heck am I going to do 26.2? But when we put all of those small steps together day after day, then we start to gain that experience and skill and confidence every single day. So consistency is key, which means that small steps make it more manageable for our busy schedules. Because when you think about the day or the week that you have stretched out in front of you with all your responsibilities with childcare and the work that you're doing, and gosh, I don't have time for my dreams, but you do have time for small steps for self-care. And anything that we're doing for ourselves that drive our dreams forward, I think that that's self-care.
And I think that's such an important point, because I know a lot of times I'll hear people, and I fell into this trap too years ago, of that, oh, I'll just wait another X number of years when I'm through this phase of life. Oh, I'll wait till my children are older. Oh, I'll wait till I'm out of this position at work and then do another one. Or, oh, I'll wait till we move into the other house. Or it's like we can easily fall into that. Well, I'm not saying I'm not doing it, but I'm gonna wait until. There never is that perfect time, right? Because if you wait until that next transition, well, then something else comes in and grabs that space, and we find ourselves constantly postponing that.
We're never in that perfect time. And any small steps that we take with the things that we want will help us maintain that foundation rather than letting it crumble beneath us entirely. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if I'm running a little bit until I have time to run more, it's going to be easy to pick up that more than starting from scratch, right?
Oh, I love that. I just love that change of thought of saying, if I do a little bit until, you're not waiting to start, you're giving yourself permission to start small.
Yeah, when my twin sister had her daughter was 2 years old, she says, I can't get on the elliptical because every time I do, I've only got about 8 minutes and she's climbing on top of me. And I'm like, go on for 8 minutes. Because eventually she's going to get older and she's going to give you 10 minutes and she's going to give you 12 minutes and she's going to be distracted long enough for you to do 15 minutes. And by the time you would have wanted to get on to do an hour, you've built up 15 minutes at a time till you're feeling like you've got this.
How do we, because I know this is something I struggle with. I'm getting better at it in certain areas of my life, but not others. That understanding that just that little bit is actually worth it. Because and I know for me when it came, that was a big shift I had to make when it came to exercise, which I'm finally comfortable with, because for me, a workout used to be an hour to an hour and a half. It was this whole big thing. Now I'm like, well, today was 15 minutes. And instead of feeling bad about that, I'm at a point where I'm grateful and saying, well, today was 15 minutes, maybe tomorrow will be more. But how do we get out of that negative place of constantly focusing on what didn't get done versus celebrating the small and using that as a way to build that momentum?
It's so difficult. I mean, as business people, as women, as parents, it's go big or go home. I want to do this right. And I want to do it the way that I know that I can, or I should, God forbid. But I think that what we first need to do is be kind and gentle to ourselves. Think of all the things that we're already crushing any given day. I'll go back to the negativity bias. The negativity bias will focus on the 100 things, or the one little thing that I didn't do right, even though there's 100 things that we've done well. And so I think that what we need to do, in the book, in chapter 7, I think you said the building belief in ourselves and our goals. I share a framework for 4 R's for building belief in yourself. And a lot of it comes down to just kind of recognizing the awesome that's already there. Do you want me to go through the 4 R's?
I would love it. Yeah.
Because we do all have a tendency to get that little inner critic in our brain that talks us down and say, you're not good enough. And geez, you should have done more. I can't believe you only did 15 minutes. Or wow, you could have done better at that, whatever it might be. We all have that voice. And so the first R is to recognize when your thoughts become unproductive. We all have that voice, and sometimes it doesn't talk to us very nicely. And we need to stop that because our inner critic isn't always right. And, most of the um, uh, people that I meet, I become a coach because I kept meeting people who have no idea how amazing they are.
Right. It's so easy for us to see it in others, but it's so hard to see it in ourselves.
Yes. And so, more of us need to stop and recognize, all right, there it is again. There's that voice, and just recognize it and just say, okay, wow, she's getting a lot of my airtime these days. Recognize when your thoughts become unproductive. Number one, remind yourself of your past wins, your current successes, and your enduring capacity. Now, I don't even need to know your listeners to know that there is a backlog of success piling up because busy women, that's all we need to say. What in the past, what are the things that you've gotten through, whether it's finishing a course or getting through a tough divorce or overcoming an illness or saving money when you didn't think you could, or whatever barrier you had to leap over in the past. If you did it then, you can do it now. There's a strength within us. So remind yourself of that. Remind yourself of your current successes, and pay attention to your surroundings and all of the things that you're doing well every single day. That list is long. But the reason why we're,
and that's, for anyone listening who's been through the top program or has a planner, that's why at the end of every week, there's a page that's called your weekly success tracker. And it's because I think it's so important to celebrate every single week. Because by Sunday, I couldn't tell you what I did on Monday, but it's really powerful to go back and go, oh yeah, I forgot. I did. I did get a lot done this week. So I love that is part of, your 4 R's as well.
Well, and I love that that's part of your journal because it's the small wins.
Mm-hmm.
It's the small wins that add up to the big successes. And at the end of the year, you might be thinking, well, I didn't have any great big wins, but then you can go back to the journal and look at, small win, small win, small win, small win. That stuff matters.
Yeah.
More than anybody knows, because that's the momentum that keeps us going, those small victories. Remind yourself of your past wins, your current successes, and your enduring capacity, because all of us have within us strength that we have no idea how much we actually have available to us. And then the third R is to reframe your negative thinking into what's possible. And this one's kind of fun because our brain is an organ that wants us to be successful. So if we feed it the right kind of information, it's going to work hard for us. And I know that, you, me, all of your listeners have had those days where we'll say, I can't do it. Yeah. That end stops, like, I'm done. Well, your brain listens to everything. I said your body hears everything you say. And when you give it that language, can't be done, the brain goes, all right, well, my job here is done. Yeah. It shuts off trying to come up with any solutions for you. So the reframe is just to open up the brain to possibilities. How might I? How might I achieve this goal? How might I go back to school? How might I save the money? How might I, get the exercise or the support that I need? It's pretty powerful, that one reframe.
Yeah. And I know for me, one of the phrases I'll use a lot is instead of here's what I can't do, is to say, okay, but what can you do?
Yes.
So maybe and it may be truly legitimate. You can't do X. My life looks very different now than it did 2 years ago, than it did 10 years ago. There are things I just can't do the same, but there's a lot I can do. It just is going to look a little bit different.
And we have to get over this idea that once we've come up with the plan or the dream, that we have to manifest it immediately. We're an instant gratification society, right? Instant gratification is like, I want to lose the weight now. Whereas, I want to get rid of the balance on my credit card. Why isn't it happening? But we need to set that intention and then do what we can to put it into motion. And those small steps of how might I, or the questions that you ask, it just has to be phrased in a question. What's possible? What can I do? What's the one thing that I can do? We'll keep that brain active, and it's going to keep you lit up to the possibilities around you. And while the answer or the results might not come right away, if you keep asking yourself the question every single day, it's almost like a gift you give yourself to stay open to possibility. And then the fourth
I think that's important, because if you're not asking it, you're not recognizing there is the possibility and you could miss that opportunity for it to
Yes.
present itself.
Yes. And that kind of leads into the fourth R, which is repeat, repeat, repeat. Because we need to practice this. We need to practice erasing our, kind of old soundtrack and replacing it with the I can do this and I am amazing and look at me go soundtrack.
And I think it's interesting. The repeat part is so important because what we never see the reality of a lot of people that come in our lives. And I mean, I even experienced this with my community. I'm sure you do with your clients as well. They see you in a working mode. They don't see, nobody saw the hot mess that was my house this morning, or because you put forth a certain persona out into the world, people think, oh, well, success just comes easy, or, oh, she doesn't have the same struggles I do, or, oh, her life is so different. And we form these false beliefs around others that their lives are rainbows and unicorns and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we're not recognizing that it may just be they're repeating. They are always working on that.
Well, and also may be that, we're gaining our view of the world through our social media channels, which aren't always the healthiest way for us to, compare.
Definitely
I call it
not.
the soul-sucking social media comparison trap. And we can get stuck in comparisonitis and feel bad about our lives because we're viewing someone else's, pseudo lives on the screen, but
which may or may not be true.
Which may not or may not be true.
I had an interesting conversation last week with one of my clients, and I was, she shared something. She's like, well, you just make it look so easy. And I just started laughing. I'm like, oh, well, you didn't see the 3 months leading up to this. That wasn't
You didn't see the meltdown I had in March when all of my business vaporized.
Yeah. And I said, well, no, I said, I tried to do this and that didn't work. And then I tried this and that didn't work. And I said, there was like 6 steps along the way to be here. And she's like, oh God, that makes me feel so much better. And it made me realize, okay, number one, I think we can do a better job. I know I can, of sharing I tried that, it didn't work. I tried that, it didn't work. But I think because I've been working on this for such a long time, on that reframe, on focusing on, okay, what can I do when I hit those roadblocks? It doesn't hurt the way it used to.
You square your shoulders.
Yeah. And I'm going,
you have that strength to push through.
What did I learn? How can I take this and now translate it to say, okay, well, then we'll try this. Well, what can I do? Well, how do I pivot this around? So, when we were having that conversation, I said, again, you're only seeing the end result. It's not that somebody is more capable, more successful, more whatever. They've just maybe been practicing the repeat part of that reframe longer than you have, to where it starts to become more second nature. So when I look back,
and when it becomes second nature, you kind of forget that it's not that way for everyone. And so, yes, from the outside looking in, people may be going, oh, you've got it all together. It hadn't occurred to you that other people aren't, because it gets ingrained. And that's the beauty of the repeat. Don't call it failure. Call it research, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I look back, it's just teaching us about what not to do next if it doesn't work.
Absolutely. I mean, even I'll say 10 years ago, but realistically it's probably only 5. When I look back at just how I responded to and reacted to things that were hard, things that didn't go well, perceived failures, the day you wake up and everything falls apart, and the way I handled that and reacted to it 5, 7, 10 years ago versus my reaction and how I handle it today looks very different, because of the constant work of and when I was initially trying to get better at it, it was very hard. It felt like a lot of work to do the reframe, to try and focus on what can I do and to make that switch. Now it's easier, but I mean, I still have things that in the heat of the moment just draw me right back to where I was before, but at least I can recover from it a lot quicker.
Well, and you've got a track record that says, I know what it feels like. I can get through this. And the reminders that say, yes, I am strong enough. Yes, I am capable. That's why I love the checking your successes at the end of the day, because those are many gratitudes, that just imprint and remind us that, yes, good stuff is out there. Yes, I'm capable of creating good stuff. Yes, I'm doing okay.
Now, do you ever get this? Because I'll hear this from people as well, is, they'll say, well, you just, that's just putting your head in the sand. If you're just always focusing on the good, like you've got to validate or be in the moment. And I always like to tell people, no, I don't feel that's putting your head in the sand. I'm not ignoring when something didn't work well or something was bad or pretending it didn't happen. What are some strategies that you can share with people on how to work through those disbeliefs, those setbacks, in a way that you acknowledge it, you validate it, you grow from it, but you don't stay stuck there, or it doesn't become part of who you are for the rest of your life, if that makes sense?
I wouldn't say that I'm excessively positive. I'd probably say I'm more of a realist. So like you, I will tend to focus on the positive because it feels better, but I don't forget about, what wasn't working up until that point. And I think that if we can, it's almost like we acknowledge that thing that's there, that didn't work, or the thing that we're not feeling good about, and just, give it a little bit of, okay, I see you. I'm not ignoring you, but spending time on this is not going to help me get there. The negativity bias will say we're always looking into the hole at the things we don't have. I don't have that. That's not enough. That's not working. The mistakes that we made. But as long as we're looking down in that gap, we can't look towards the horizon and what's possible. And so, yes, I say acknowledge the thing and then just say, but I'm not paying attention to you right now. It's a little bit of thought stopping.
Yeah.
And then lift your head up and look towards what you want. The question that I have in one of the chapters in the book is the big little question: what do I want? What do I want? Which for women and for
It's
parents,
hard to answer.
it's a hard question to answer without factoring in your loved ones,
Mhm.
without factoring in your kids, without factoring in your aging parents. What do I want? Just, nobody else on the planet, because it feels selfish, but it's a powerful question because it puts us in a space of how do I recharge myself and take care of myself so that I do have the capacity to take care of everyone else and everything else. Because that's, the role that you will default to ask
Every
yourself
single
every single
time.
morning, what do I need for myself today?
Well, and I went through an exercise with a group of women not too long ago. And that was one of the first questions I had them go through, was like, okay, just sky's the limit. Money's not an issue, time's not an issue, whatever. What would you do for yourself? What are your dreams? And almost all of them, the bulk of what was written down, were about other people. I would do this for so and so. And I had to say, no, just you. And over half of them were like, I don't even know how to do that.
I don't know.
I have
Yeah.
not thought about just myself in so long. I don't even know how to do that.
It takes practice. And I'll tell you, I went through the whole exercise for myself after a particularly difficult breakup at the end of my 30s, to have to ask myself every single day, what do you want? And I didn't always know the answer about what I wanted, but I did know what I didn't want. And so I started to pay attention to those things first. And that started to move me more towards, okay, well, if I don't want that, then the cells in my body started to resonate towards the things that felt like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that would be interesting.
That's a really great, I like that for people that are struggling to come up with, what dreams do I have? What direction do I want? Maybe you're at a pivotal point in life. You're trying to figure out which way to go. If you're not sure, I like that idea, because it's a lot easier to say, well, I know I don't like this.
Because we will tend to drive ourselves also towards the things that we're good at, even if it's not something that we love. I used to be a personal trainer, and I liked the client interaction. I didn't love the personal training. I was a teacher at the college and I loved the teaching. I didn't like the marking. And so when I really sat with it, it's like, oh, I'm very qualified to be a personal trainer, but I'm also qualified to be a coach. And I love the interaction with my coaching clients where it's all forward thinking about what's possible. And I love being in front of an audience. And so why can't I move towards presenting more and marking papers less, to pay attention to those little hits of joy or flatness in the things that we do on the day to day.
I love that. And something you said right at the beginning has really resonated with me. And it's something a previous guest had said, but in a different way, was that idea of, is this thought productive? And I think putting it that way instead of, oh, that's a negative thought, oh, that's a positive thought. No, just ask yourself, is it productive? Because it might be a thought that someone perceives as quote negative, but it might be productive because it's telling you this is not good for you anymore.
Right. Yeah. Which is a great
Versus,
point, because not all of the negative thoughts that come our way need to be dismissed. Sometimes it's our inner critic guiding us towards, maybe you better put your spidey senses up right now. Pay
yeah.
attention. Your gut and intuition might be trying to tell you something. So sit with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was Rachel was on talking, giving some parenting advice, and it was that same conversation, to have with your kids of, well, is that a productive thought as opposed to, is it good or is it bad? Is this productive right now?
Love that.
And the fact you brought that up again, I was like, okay, this keeps coming up for me. It's something clearly I need to, pay more attention to, and how I'm thinking about the thoughts and beliefs that are coming through for me as well as I think about.
Well, and see, that raises a good point, because in my book, I talk a lot about how your body works to help you work better. And this, our body and the brilliant mind in it is a resilient and very intuitive piece of machinery if we listen to what it's trying to tell us. Our body will talk to us, I'm hungry, I need a break, I need better sleep, I need better food, whatever it might be. But our mind will also talk to us with those intuitive hits, or those moments of doubt, or those moments of, oh, there's something there, to really just be with ourselves. And more often than not, we're so busy that we don't stop long enough to listen to what mind and body are trying to tell us every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So for everybody that is, you guys may have already started your goal planning, or maybe you did, someone walked away from it, or you started off January 1st strong, and now here we are a couple weeks later. It's like, what are some great tips that you can give for people as they're launching forward into 2021 around building a really solid belief system for themselves in their year?
Well, solid belief system. I think we do need to spend a little time getting clear about what we want for ourselves. And I gotta say, I don't love resolutions. I love the idea of goal setting, but I think of January 1st as a tough time to just kind of let's just forget the holiday party and get right into getting to work. And also, I don't love the fact that resolutions tend to have a December 31st end date. And I like the idea of small steps every day towards the things that are meaningful for us. I like the idea of setting big goals, but breaking them down small. And I love the idea of marking down our successes, if not daily, at least weekly, just to remind ourselves, because we can be awfully hard on ourselves. We're not making a progress as quick as we should, or we're not doing it the right way, or what have you. Here's the thing about, checking off our successes is your brain wants you to be successful. So if you're checking things off, you're going to get this endorphin hit that says, yes, I've done something towards my dream. Your brain doesn't care if it's a small hit or a big hit. But if you do that same small thing tomorrow, and that same small thing the next day, halfway through the year, you're going to be looking back thinking, wow, look at what I've accomplished. We have to be kind and gentle with ourselves, and, go small and celebrate the wins.
We do. And it was, I've been going back and doing kind of my year review, reflection, and retrospective. And it's so powerful, because we're women, we've got so much going on. I'm not sure what I was doing before I hopped on this interview with you, let alone last January, but taking that time to go back and look, and all of a sudden I went, well, gosh, I've got, I went from this, well, I didn't hit my goals for the year, kind of woe is me place, to holy cow, look at all the things that got done this year alongside a pandemic. So I'm going to have a complete reframe of, I am 100% okay with, I may not have hit that mark I set for myself in January, because look at what did happen and all the pivoting that went on in between. And if I hadn't taken the time to go back and look at that, I'd be ending the year in a place of feeling a little down. Because we're not programmed to celebrate and remember all those wins. We go right to what isn't, instead of all the good that
I don't think any of us have years that look anything like we had thought they might, but wow, have we all, navigated some pretty big obstacles. And for one, am using the beginning of 2021 as a little bit bigger reset than I might normally, because 2020 really did teach us some lessons and challenge us on ways that we've never been challenged before. And moving ahead, I know we're moving towards brighter pastures. I'm believing in that. what would it look like if we just decide, okay, from this point forward, how do I want things to be different? I mean, really, what do I really need for myself this year? If I got through that, wow, sky's the limit in this direction.
I think if anything, it showed us we can do hard things, right?
Yes.
I mean, if we're still here having this
Yes.
conversation, that means we can work our way through hard things. My hope is that that will translate for people to have instilled that stronger belief system in their abilities, in their resiliency, in what they can do when they're put up against the wall and put into really hard positions.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing, that resilience to have within us. And yeah, I'll say it again. I keep meeting people who have no idea how amazing they are. That's why I became a coach. And I think that all of us need to look within and say, yeah, you know what? I'm doing okay in whatever small ways.
Absolutely. Well, where can everybody learn about your book, come find you, follow you, all of that?
You can go to successenergybook.com. That's kind of a one-stop shop to find the book, to find my social channels, to find my regular website. The book is available on Amazon as well. And if you want it signed, then just find me on successenergybook.com.
Oh,
I would
awesome.
love to send one your way.
And
I
I'll
hope
be
everybody
putting
has
the link for those of you who want to pop on and look at the show notes. I've got links to all the places that you can find Michelle as well. What I loved about the book is it's one of those you'll need to go back and visit often, because there's just so many good things that made me stop and think. But it's very, I don't want to come out, but it's a very easy read. It's a comfortable read. Whereas sometimes when I've dug into books along those similar topics, it felt almost like homework or work, and very kind of like a chore to sit down and read it. This was an absolute pleasure to work through,
I'm so
but in
glad
a
to
way
hear
that I'm
that.
like, this is one you go back and revisit often.
My goal is
So,
to have a guilt-free approach to personal growth. We don't need to
that's great.
feel guilty about what we haven't done. We just need to look forward and square our shoulders and decide what it is we want for ourselves, because we're all capable, but we're also all juggling a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, your family needs you, life, your work, whatever, do all of that thing, all those things, and then give yourself the gift of, little bits of personal growth for yourself.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure we will need to discuss so many more things
Yes,
and
it's been
in
a real
future
pleasure, Megan.
episodes
Thank
as
you
the
so
year goes
much.
on.